Hello, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make about the simplest wiki site possible. We're going to do this using XAMPP on Windows using Visual Code as our editor, though this can easily be done with Ubuntu, and there is a working version on a website, wikitutorial.thepurpletree.uk, where I'll show you the wiki looks like this. You've got simple wiki words, have 2 or more capitals. They link to pages which have the same name as the wiki word, and you can edit them with an edit button and save them, and that's about it. It goes back to a very long time. It was a very simple system done by Ward Cunningham, I think in the 90s. It inspired the Wikipedia effort, which of course has taken over the web. And I want to bring things right back to where it all started in terms of a simple wiki website that anybody can edit. So let's get started. Now I've got XAMPP installed. Here is the htdocs directory. I'm going to create a new directory in here called mywiki, which is where we're going to put our code. Right click on that and open with code. And here is our code. I'm going to put the Firefox on the left hand side and our code window on the right. Now I need to create a new file, .htaccess. This will use mod rewrite to rewrite URLs. You need it enabled. With XAMPP it's enabled out of the box. On Ubuntu you need to do a few configuration things to make it enabled. I'll put that in the comments below rather than go through it on this tutorial. So we need to create .htaccess, and what needs to go in there is rewrite engine on rewrite base /mywiki/. Now this rewrite base must be the directory on your server where the wiki is going to be located. Rewrite rule, the default rewrite rule. These don't need to be in quotes. Needs to be that. And if we have no, so the default page gets redirected to the wiki with no arguments. Rewrite rule, I'll get rid of the sidebar. Now here is a regular expression pattern for a wiki word. It starts with a capital, continues with A to Z, lowercase or uppercase or numbers, 0 or more, another capital, A to Z, 0 to 9, more of those, and has nothing else after it, so we put a dollar at the end, except the dollar goes after the brackets, and this gets sent to wiki.php and we have a query string word equals $1, which is all the stuff on the left in brackets here. And the L means once it's done this rule, don't apply anymore. And that's all we need for that. Bring back the sidebar, new folder. We need to create a folder for our pages. And I'm going to get some pages that I've already written. Absolute nonsense, no meaning at all. Copy and paste into there. And now we need to create our wiki page. For now there'll be one PHP file. I will make a second for the templates to keep those separate from the rest of the code. It just makes it a bit tidier. And so what we're going to do is to make a simple PHP program which takes the word from the query string and dumps and simply looks into the page to see whether there is anything there, and if so, dump it out. So we start a PHP file, as we do. Fine. I'll create a constant here for the wiki word, in this case home page in camel case, which will be the default page if no page is specified. Now we check to see whether a word is specified in the query string. And if so, we take that word and we assign it to a variable. Now here we're not doing anything to sanitize this word or check that it's valid. Obviously in a remotely serious website you want to sanitize everything that comes from the outside. Here we're just going to get the most trivial example we can working and go from there. If there is no wiki word specified, we use a redirect to redirect to our home page, which is a 303, and then do nothing else. If we've got this far, then if our page exists, it will have the file name /word.txt, and this is kind of why you should sanitize things. You want to make sure that the user can put anything they like into this variable by the query string, so you want to disallow stupid things. But file exists, page file name, page source is file get contents, page file name if it exists, else page source equals page word does not exist yet. Now to render our code, we'll define it in a function because it's good practice. Word is a global variable, page source is a global variable, and we're just going to take that page source and dump it out to the browser. No HTML in there at all. And if we now go to our local file, here we see the text, hello to hello, this is my super simple wiki web clone. If we look at in pages homepage in code, we see that's the text. So this is our not quite a wiki yet, but we're dumping text out. The next thing we want to do is to actually format this as an HTML, format this as, put HTML in. If I look at the source here, you see there's no HTML tags in there at all. We want to put that in. For that we want to make a template file. New file, templates.php, and for that we're going to make a simple template equals, and we're going to use a now doc. HTML method char set equals 8, title my wiki. Now this string here, wiki word, is going to get replaced by the actual name of the page. Style, we don't need to use any fancy notation for template variables, family. I quite like the Fire Code font. I use it in code, and things are just going to come out in monospace text. White space pre-wrap. This will be very, very old school. There's the style. That's all our header, body, H1. The wiki word becomes a header. Pre page body. Body HTML. And that's our template. And we're going to use that template to render our page. So to do that, we are going to load our view template, include templates.php. So now the variable is defined. It's a global variable. So we want our view template here. Now we're going to do two things. First, we're going to we are going to replace wiki words, which are words with more than one capital, with links to that page, and then we are going to plonk the output into our HTML template. Now, to pick out wiki words, we're going to define a constant for our regular expression, A to Z, A to Z, to Z, A to Z, 0 to 9, A to Z, A to Z, A to Z, 0 to 9, and this needs a star. So this is our regular expression for wiki words. So define the home page. Again, we see if there's a wiki word. Later we will add, I'll put a comment in here, check that word is a valid wiki word. Else we'll throw up an error page, which I'll get to later. Page file name. If the file exists, this is exactly the same. The only difference is the render function. So first we're going to define a function, wiki word to link. It's considered good practice for a function to do one simple, well-defined thing. So in this case, we're going to turn a wiki word to a link. href equals access what this does here, this is going to be called by the preg replace callback function from PHP. I'll bring up the documentation for that. PHP preg replace callback, and we see here it takes a pattern and a callback, and whenever the pattern is matched, the callback function gets called. So what we're going to do, so we'll assign this to a temporary variable. I'll call it temp. Here's replace callback. Wiki word, comma. I don't really need to keep doing these quotes, doing it like this, but I'll stick with that for now. Wiki word to link page source, and that will replace any wiki words with links to a word of the same name. Now we want to apply our template, so our output will replace two things. So we'll have an array of things to search for, wiki word and wiki page body, and things to replace it with. If it finds wiki word, replace it with a word, and the contents get replaced with the output of our PHP replace callback, and finally we render the output. And let's go back to our home page, reload it, and there's an error on page 26. These always happen. That semicolon should be there, and string replace. View template, home page, and now we have an actual HTML. If we look at the source and reload it, we have an actual HTML file being dumped out, which is good to have. What we'll do later on is strip out extraneous blank lines and white space at the end of the file, because we don't want that. But let's carry on. We want to now enable editing of these files, since that's a major feature of a wiki. So we're going to refactor slightly, because firstly we need to define a new template for the actual editing page. If I go back to my version here, we see we have a simple text area and a save button, and that's all we need. So what we're going to do is to start a new template called edit template, and again use a now doc. And I can copy and paste a lot of this from here. HTML meta char set. We want that to be the same, except I'll put edit on the end. We have style. This is going to be the same. Style is there. And then here's the different bit. Form method equals post, the really old-fashioned original way that CGI scripts and things worked long before Ajax techniques. Text area name equals source, cols equals 80 columns, rows equals 25. Old school people remember that as being the number of rows and columns on a standard MS-DOS screen. Autofocus. Wiki page. You want to paste the source in there. Text, close the text area, input, type equals submit, class equals. We don't really need to specify a class here, but I'm going to use the class to pick it out rather than the input in the CSS. Value equals save, close that, and that's our form. That's the end of our body. That's the end of our HTML, and that's the end of our template. So now we go back to the wiki. Currently we have one render function. Now we need to have two different functions depending on whether we are editing or viewing. Now to do that, I shall rename render to action view because we are viewing, and action edit. We'll create a new action for our edit. Global, we need our word, our page source, our edit template, our output is produced by, we don't have to process wiki words at all this time round, so we can just do the straight string replace array wiki word wiki page source. Those are our things to look for. Word and array and our page source, and replace those in the edit template. And echo that to the browser. That's all we have to do there. Now in our view action, this will get called by one of two ways. If it's called by a get request, which is the usual request, that means we want to view. If, however, we try and post to a page, that's what happens when we try and save. We want to detect this and then jump to a different function if so. Function server request method. If it's post, handle post. That's all we have to do there, and then we have another function global word I'll just check in our template a minute. In our form, text editor name equals source, that's correct, that bit there, because that will get found in here. The source here is the same source in the template. New source is that file is put, and again, this is bad practice for real websites because it allows people to write rather arbitrarily onto a live website. But once that's done, we simply redirect the browser to the same thing as before, except that now we are using a get request, so we're telling it to view the page we have just saved. And we're done with that, so we exit. And I think that's going to work, but we want one more thing. We want a link we can click on to edit. Global word, div, edit link, word, and we put a simple query string on the end of question mark edit. Edit, if I spell that correctly. Close that and close the div. And we can close it in a div called edit link, which enables us to style it, which we'll do a bit later on. and that should work. The one thing we have to do is go back to our htaccess and add a little bit more detail. So I don't want to do that. Now we need to use rewrite cond in the htaccess file to look at the query string and see what it is. Rewrite cond, short for rewrite condition. Query string. $, that means if the query string is blank, we apply this rewrite rule. Now this will not happen if the query string, so do another query string caret edit. If the query string is edit, this will get used. We can copy and paste that line. The only difference is we have an additional edit. And if we now go to my wiki on my home page, see what it works on, there's a fatal error. Call to undefined function render, because I changed to action edit. The bit I missed off here, sorry about that, is to I'm going to call a variable dispatch, which is the function we're going to call action. And again, at this point, we're not sanitizing the action parameter sent in via the query string. But what we are going to do, if the function exists, which this will function for us like a whitelist. So if the function exists, call it. If it doesn't exist, we say invalid action. Now this gives us the effect of whitelist, because if the user supplies any action other than view or edit or no action at all, this will throw an error. Now we need to get rid of render. We'll try again. Undefined variable action. That's because we haven't done the at the top array key exists. If array key exists, action in the get variable action equals and this will of course else. So if no action is specified, we default to view. And now it does work. We need to append our edit link so that we can edit the file. So what we want to do is to take our source tmp and we're going to append our, I'll put a space and for now we're just going to literally stick it on the end. That's all it has to do. Replace that. And now we have an edit button here. We click on edit, we can edit. I can delete those lines. Put hello world there. A slight bug up there, wiki word. That means that in the template that's not getting replaced. Wiki PHP. What's your point? What's happening there? Array wiki word should be happening. We'll quickly check that this saves. It doesn't save because the wiki word is wrong. This is correct. wrong template. So now that's correct up there, and so on, and now it should work, and it has not. So when we I'm going to pause for a minute and make this all work. Post equals source, that's the error. So I'll cut a bit out there. Post should be square brackets. And we're going to save that, and now it works. There we go. Here's a wiki word. Save. Click on here as a wiki word. Page does not exist yet. Edit. It does now. I don't want that to be a wiki word, so I'll put that capital and save. Here is a wiki word. So that really is pretty much all the wiki site does, or the most basic wiki site. And what we want to do now finally is something that I tend to care about, is make things easy to access from the keyboard and also style it a little. If we look currently at what we've got, I'm going to bring up a terminal. I use Cygwin, so I've got a GNU style command line environment. So there's our two files. How many lines of PHP do we have? 102. And just to make it a nice and neat thing, we'll take the string replace, bung it on one line, bung it on one line, and there we go, a working wiki site in under 100 lines of code. Now we're going to go and go slightly over 100 lines of code and make it slightly more robust. So the first thing that we're going to do, as I said before, I like things to be accessible from a keyboard. So I'm going to go back to the templates. I'm going to add a bit more styling. I'm going to make the edit link look like a button by turning it into an inline block. Add a bit of padding, 3 M's. Background color 070 for dark green, color white because on a dark background, border 1px solid black. That's kind of what buttons look like these days. And then, so that we can launch the editor with a key press rather than grabbing the mouse, window.add event listener load, a function that takes no parameters. I can add event listener, key down, takes one parameter, e for the event. If e.key is identical to the letter e, e.prevent default. Const URI is equal to window.location. Const new URI is equal to URI edit. So this will take the wiki word URI and just append the query string. Window.location href is equal to new URL. And we can close that and close that and close that. We need closing brackets around these window add event listener functions. And we don't actually need to do this. I always instinctively put everything inside a window, add event listener load, so that it runs when the content is loaded. In this case, it won't fail if it's not. So actually what I'm going to do is to get rid of that and unindent this a little bit. And that's our page. And if we reload that one, there's an error. In here somewhere, and of course PHP errors are not well, actually no, errors are, oh no, most likely yes, I haven't closed the script tag. So now our styling is on our edit button, and if I press E, it does nothing. Let's bring up the console. New URL, okay, new UR, confusion between URL and URI, reload, and now E opens up our editor. It's, because there's really nothing in here, it's very, very quick. There's no images, there's no Java, well, very little JavaScript. And now we want to go to our other thing, and so in our edit template we want to define some styles. We don't need a style for pre, we do need one for save button, display inline block, padding 0.3 em, background color same as before, dark green, color white, border 1px solid black, and close that. And we need a script. Const q. I use is a bit like jQuery, but I just want a shorthand for document.query selector x. The other one I define is q for query all equals array.from. Making it an array allows you to use map and filter, which by default you can't if you just take the output from query select all. And the other thing I do on these functions is often I'll put y equals document and put a y there, which allows me to run query select all on a element as well as the entire document. But for this document, all I need is that. Then window.add event listener key down. E goes maps to if e.code. Now I want to use the key code. Back quote and e.shift key. So we save by pressing shift and back quote. Back quote on most keyboards is the key beneath the X, or back quote on a PC keyboard is the key just below escape in the top right hand corner. On Macs I believe it's in the bottom left, but I haven't used a Mac for quite some time, so I can't remember the keyboard layout on a Mac. E-prevent default and submit the form, and that's, we can close that, and we need to close that with a bracket, and then I think that's it. So if we reload now, edit, it does now. Let's make another wiki word, shift back quote, and it saves, and there it goes instantly. So now I can go press E to edit, go to the end, hello, hello world, shift back quote to save. Finally, in the source code, when saving, what I want to do, and I'll have to look this up, PHP trim white space, look at the function, I can't remember that, trims white space strip from beginning and end, and I presume there's an R trim. Now I'll take this time to recommend something which I'm not using here because I'm trying to stick with things readily available. There is a program called Zeal for documents which lets you browse documentation offline. It's very good. But all I'm going to do now is go to our handled post, file, put contents, our trim. So we're going to trim off all the trailing white space from our file. And that means if I now go to a Wiki Word and edit it, and put lots of character returns on the end, they get removed. Now there are a few things I would like to add. One is an error if it's not a Wiki Word. So for that, I don't want that, I want that. In pages, I'm going to create a new page. I'll create it here, not I'm literally going to use Wiki Words for error messages. That is not a Wiki Word. This page is protected. I'll get to how it's protected. It's quite simple. Another nice thing to use about PHP. And also what I'm going to do is place a total limit on the number of pages available that it can store. Just to show you how that works. Too many pages. Too many pages. You cannot add more pages. Sorry. Have a nice day. This page is protected. Save that, and we'll go back to our wiki source. Now to do the protection, I shall go to the top. Protected pages equals array. Not a Wiki Word. Too many pages. And what we can then do is with handle post, if in array, if word, if a Wiki Word is in our protected pages, and that's a global variable, so we need to bring that in. And if that's in our protected pages, then we don't overwrite it. So if it's not in the protected pages, we can save the modified file. Otherwise, we just drop straight through to the view. So all will happen is trying to save to a protected page will fail silently and leave the original content as it is. Another quick test. If how many files are there? Count glob. So glob matches files with wildcards. Pages start.txt. If count is greater than 1024, I'm not going to test this works by trying to generate 1024 pages. So actually, what I'll do, so I'll change that to 4. That's an else if. Now, if we are going to give an error, location, too many pages. So if we now if. Now we're going to allow you to overwrite pages that do exist. If I do it at the moment and I edit this page here and try and save it, it's not letting me save. Trying to work out why. Let's try again. Edit, save. Too many pages. Now, if count glob is greater than 4, and actually what I'm going to do here is do if count glob is greater than 4 and not file exist pages so if the page file name already exists, we can save it. Otherwise it won't create any new pages. That stops people spamming a site with lots of new pages. It's not particularly secure, we're not too worried about that. Else, if it's not in the array, if it's not in the protected pages, we can update it. So if I now go to here and go to edit and 2, still does too many pages. If I saved it, edit, too many pages, so it doesn't do it yet. Okay, I'm going to do if, try putting these in brackets. That again, edit, too many pages, page file name is a global variable, so I've got to declare it global. Now if I save, it lets you save. So edit again, take out our text, save it. But if I now go to the I find a new page that hasn't been defined yet and edit that, it does now. Shift back click, too many pages. So that prevents people trying to flood your wiki with lots of random rubbish. Another feature of wiki sites, especially Wikipedia, is you can find previous versions of files by storing them somewhere. We're not going to do that here yet. Maybe that's time for another tutorial. But that pretty much is how you make a simple wiki website. So I'll stop there. Something which I forgot is that you can, if I go to wiki.php word equals 43 blue, that should not work. But here we have a wiki page with something that's not a valid wiki word. So a quick thing to do, which I forgot, I put a note here, check that wiki work is a valid wiki word. Word is a wiki, if not preg match wiki word. And what I'm going to do to clear up this wiki word regex is put the slashes in here, because the only place this is used in regex is. Remove that regex. So if it's not a wiki, if that fails to match, then we send the user to not a wiki word, and exit. And if I do this now, fatal error, preg match, because I forgot to give it wiki word regex, comma word, and a wiki word regex. Wiki word. So every instance a wiki word. So go around and try again. Not a wiki word. Go back to there. We try and put wiki.php 43 blue, not a wiki word, just a bit more robust. So now we are checking that word is a valid wiki word. And yes, that's our simple wiki site.